I'd like to call this meeting to order, this regular council work session on this Tuesday, April 21st. The clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Wolcott?
Here.
Vice Mayor Williams? Here. Councilmember Tandy?
Here.
Councilmember Hall?
Here.
Councilmember Villanueva? Here. Councilmember Biendo?
Here.
Councilmember Winters?
Here.
Thank you.
And if you'll all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first item on the agenda is kind of a special item, I know, for the city manager. So I'm going to ask you if you would like to introduce this item.
Oh, thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of City Council. It's been just a little less than a year ago that you honored me with the opportunity to be city manager here in the city of Surprise. And I have the opportunity to work with a fantastic team of people, about 1,000 people who work. We all work for you and work for our residents, and we care for people. From our police department, our public works department, that's our focus is to serve. But about 2 months or so ago, after consulting with you and obtaining your blessing, we formed a new department, a department that focuses even more on people, on human service and community vitality. And I'm very, very honored and grateful to be able to select a person to lead that team, Mike Celaya, a person who's perfect for this job of starting the department from the ground up, a person with experience in this field, but also a person that has connections, understands grants, the federal process. And he has around him today his team, and he's going to share with you some of the work that they've done, some of the great achievements that they already have under their belt, and some of the vision that they have for the future. With that, I'll turn it over to our director, Mike Celaya.
Good evening, Michael.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. First, I'd like to thank you and City Manager Bob Wickenroth for the opportunity and the development of this Human Service and Community Vitality Department. My colleagues who are with me here today, we're passionate about this issue, human service and community vitality. We're excited, and it's something that we believe in. And before I do that, I want to just introduce my staff, as we've sort of been growing a camaraderie in the last couple of months, and believe me when I say I do stand behind everything that we do as a team, and we will do it to the future. To my left here, I have Alicia Rubio, who works in our neighborhood and family services. And I don't think Ruby really ever needs an introduction anywhere she goes. She's our Romanian. Jason Hughes, neighborhood services as well. And I think most of you have really got to know Mario Gutierrez as well. Part of my leadership team involves, Janine, and new to the scene, I think, here for Human Service, and really has been a part of CRS for quite a few years. And I want to thank Mark Coronado for our GQ man, Joe Gladio. We have never seen Joe look like this. So everybody wanted to know who died and who's getting married type of discussion with Joe as we walked in. And of course, Christina Ramirez, our supervisor for neighborhood services. Before I get going, I do want to point out our logo here, as that was really an issue for our department in formulating and trying to see what we can convey within the city to our residents on behalf of our mayor and council as well. We had so much help with this with our communications department with Diane Arthur, Muriel, and Virginia. They ended up owning this logo. We discussed our mission, our vision, our philosophy, and they took it personal on this for us, and I really want to thank them because this really represents who we are. As you can tell, the vitality portion is something we'll talk about a little bit further in this presentation, but we're looking for all hands on deck. And that includes you, of course, our faith-based organizations, our agencies, our partnership agencies, the many departments that within this organization. Those hands are involved in there because they've had a lot of input too as we've been developing as a team. And most of all, our residents, we need them for this department to flourish and do what we need to do and represent. It's imperative that we have their stake in the game on this as well. So we're looking forward to this logo, and you will see this on branding for us. Almost all the slides, I think, have a little left-hand corner for that. We are very proud of this, and I can't thank Diane and her staff so much for that. So why a new department? You know, that seems to be the question I think that quite a few other people are asking within the community. And I got to start this off by saying back, as Bob made reference to when we started talking about this new department, Bob was looking for a premier human service department. He just didn't want the usual human service department. He didn't want just the best in the Northwest Valley. He wanted this to be global. You know, this is our city manager. I mean, this is the kind of sit-down we have with him. And you can imagine the stories that go behind this with Bob, because he's got a definition for quite a bit of what his meaning is when he rolls something out. Bob wanted a new holistic approach to community, to the sense of community. And he felt that this department could play a role in assisting our other departments, as he's mentioned, fire, police, CRS, and that we can work together to make this something of a community need. The department, of course, would focus on a complete community need. He wanted the best practices when we were researching in the development of the department. So we've scanned the sites, the websites. We've made quite a few calls on just the services and programs that are offered in communities. And so that's where we're going with this department when we were rolling this out. Mayor and Council, you've been proactive yourself in executing a vision. And we all need this. There are initiatives that have grown within the city as the city has matured. And so the development of this department couldn't come at a better time with the staff that's in place right now for that and to make that happen. So we are excited about that. I want to make sure that this is not a rebrand of a department, but a revitalization of our community engagement. One of our department goals, and my staff hasn't heard this, but we've talked about this quite a bit, is to increase our community engagement. You know, we're sort of working on that with the help of our city clerk's office right now with a voter engagement component, our block party trailer that you'll hear about a little bit more on data and statistics behind that. But I think we can increase that number. And so I'm going to roll out something publicly that may be a little bit robust, a little bit upfront, but I'm going to say 50%. I think we can increase that community engagement. That's how confident I am in this department and the people and with you all to make that happen. With that, meaning is reinventing. Not so much reinventing, but recalibrating the services and programs that we have right now. A lot of it is just little tweaks here and there, and then we can improvise and we can move forward in improving those programs. Developing community partnership. We're already on the floor doing this within our community. We've had communications with quite a few of our nonprofits, Benavia, WAM, ACA. We've reached out to many of our faith-based organizations. We've met with Radiant Church members quite a bit. They're going to be very active with us as well. Huge congregation for us to really reach out to and utilize. I'm excited about that. And most of all, too, a component is defining our Old Town Surprise and its historic value and its part in one surprise. We've got to bring this together, and I think that we can play a role in assisting that. As we grow in the city, we need to be mindful of keeping neighborhoods connected so that they don't drift. I want to share a story in a little bit, but it's been interesting to hear from our community, from our partners, and the outside on the word vitality itself. Before I tell you about vitality, I want to tell you an example of what vitality is not. I'd like to share a story of a town. And this is personal, because I've grown up myself in an old town. Every time I drive down, I see less and less of what community it was when I grew up. I see a city or a town surviving instead of thriving. City Surprise is thriving. You know, last week I was able to go to 3 separate events here. It was beautiful to see this community, the heart and soul of Surprise. And so I miss that in my own community. I see a town that used to be. I drive by fields that there's no longer that agriculture, those cotton fields that you see entering this community. You drive in down Main Street, and it's basically on life support. For a city of over 80 houses on the historic registry, it really doesn't play well for the community. I see ball fields. I see recreation fields not being utilized. And for me, it saddens my heart in ways I can't even think of right now. There's an Ace Hardware store. You know the jewelry stores. You know the typical businesses and the signs that show out of business. Some of you may have seen this in your own community. Some of you have seen thriving communities. But this is something of what vitality is not. And so it's an experience that I have, and a reminder every morning when I look outside my office in Old Town, Surprise, I see my house across the street. It was interesting to hear that that house I was looking at actually was the former house of our city clerk, Sherry Aguilar. Ironic, but it was. The schools are declining. They're moving to New Florence, which is Poston Butte High School. Anthem's Johnson Ranch area is actually a non-incorporated area of about 80,000 plus people, Santan Valley, that is growing. And that is really the new surprise. Does this story sound familiar? Is there some similarities here for us here? Absolutely there is. And I just want to make sure that our historic value in Old Town is part of one surprise. It needs to be. It's our culture. It's the beginning of our culture. And it's a component of the city. So what is human services? You know, if you take a look at our bullets here, fair housing, we've looked at it as utility assistance, senior services, health, wellness options. Those are the ways we've considered human services. No matter what comes to mind with human services, the core mission is to helping people, providing them community vitality and connecting our people. That's human services to us. And here, vitality. In the community, I heard so many words and responses to vitality. It was something of interest to everyone that asked the question, what is vitality? I would ask them. And what's not on here is hope, intergenerational, I even had one individual say it's actually a word that needs to be in a prayer. You think about vitality and its thriving communities. I'll show you examples here in the coming slides, but this is what we see as where vitality and what it means to us. Diversity, enthusiasm, and energy, power. As part of our first slide, you saw that proudly investing and connecting in our people is our mission. It's very short, very simple. Our vision is community action, approach to vitality of surprise. Our philosophy is no different than any other department here. We have a service culture. We do, but we want to be a part of that as well with the likes of our fire, our police, our CRS, and all other departments here. They provide a great service here, and we just want to be a part of that. Connecting our cause. As you see here, community vitality and human service, I just explained. And what I want to take a little bit further in community vitality is we see that as you come in on Bell, coming from the west to the east, our Texcelerator out in Old Town. You see the Whams and the Benavias. You're going to see in the future Westmec on Grand. Cobalt Medical is already starting construction. That's vitality. That's another example in just a big picture form of what we're looking at for vitality. And it's a component of sustainable development, something that was lost in the community I grew up in. And so I can't tell you enough about our economic development team. I've met with Janine, and we've shared some things that we can be doing and be a part of economic development as well with some of the services and programs we have. With that, I'm going to hand this off to Janine.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening.
You pull it forward a little bit more, Janine.
Good evening. I heard the other day a staff person say, well, your new department is just a conglomeration of some existing divisions. And over the last 3 months, I learned that it is not that. These divisions have been working under different departments, and over time, I don't think that we really knew what they were doing. I don't think that we had a clear understanding. So over the last 3 months, we've done assessments and SWOTs, and we realized that, you know what, we got a lot of work to do. Not only do we need to promote the things that they did in the past, we also need to tell you what we're going to do and how we're going to expand services. So, you know what, I might need, can you hear me okay, or is it a little muffled?
I'm still struggling. I don't know about anybody else.
Is that better?
That's so much
That's
better.
a lot
Thank
better.
you.
Okay. See, to my point, no one could hear what was going on. Nobody really had a good sense of what the divisions were doing. So like I said, over the last 3 months, we did SWOTs, we did assessments, we had surveys galore, and we found out, you know what, we have a lot of work to do. And the first thing we have to do is let people know what has already been going on. We need to sell ourselves better because there have been some wonderful things and wonderful programs that were already taking place. But with the new department, Mike, the city manager, and you, the council, have challenged us. You have challenged us to not only market what we already do, but to actually expand our services. And so I'm just going to talk about that a little bit. We believe that we can do this by integrating complementary and supplemental programs and projects, not by duplicating efforts that nonprofits already do. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be that kind of a partner. The 2010 census, as you all know, I always say it, defined us as having the 4th largest 65 plus per capita population. Now, even though 19% of our residents are 65 plus, did you know that 27.4% of our residents are 17 years and younger? That's huge. That makes us a very diversely aging community. And it's for that very reason that we had a national recognition as the 2015 Best Intergenerational Community. And so our senior site council that Joe has been overseeing for several years now, or actually a year now, but they've been in existence for a really long time. They've agreed to work with us on becoming an age-friendly community. And that means that with the help of Maricopa Association of Governments, we'll develop a business plan that talks about how we can age in different phases and how we can develop different programs and projects that actually meet the needs of our diverse community. The City of Surprise is also a Luke Air Force Base supporter and partner. Like a good neighbor, what we want to do is host some roundtables so that we can better understand how we can meet the needs of more than 12,730 veterans that actually reside in our city limits. That is a lot of veterans. I'm actually a wife of one. So we want to learn how we can figure out what they do for us, what they can do for us, what assets they have, and what we can do for them. We've already done some veteran discount programs. I know Mike Salaya, as an IG, also worked with CRS Mark Coronado to allow veterans to come to our pools at a discounted price. As a wife of a veteran, that was monumental for my kids. We live in a county island. We came over to Surprise because we have the best pools ever, and my kids got to go at a discounted rate. Those sorts of things say Surprise supports its vets. We also believe in continual partnerships with local nonprofits, schools, faith-based organizations, and even private businesses. We plan on maximizing our services by minimizing costs. If we partner on projects and we don't duplicate efforts, we are sure to make sure that we meet all sorts of needs of those persons that can benefit from human services. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to Mike so he can brag about some of the things that we're already doing.
Next up, I'm going to bring up Joe Gladio. I've got to tell you something about Joe. When I first went to the center, didn't know too much what the play was and the seniors, how they were doing. And when I said that there was a recalibrating going, I meant that in the sense for the senior center. There was already a structure there. There was already a buildup happening. Joe came to the center almost 11 months ago, 10, 11 months ago, and started doing his business there with the seniors, and has been able to develop a relationship with just about each and every one of them. And I just couldn't say enough about Joe and the work he's done and the many hats he wears to turn this around for senior services. Joe.
Thank you very much. Our first slide we have up here is the staff that we have at the senior center. They're not able to make it today because they're closing down the shop for the day, so they wanted to be here. Our staff is made up of part-time employees and Title V employees as well. We have 3 of them on there that are Title V that we utilize as staffing. And unfortunately, the gentleman in the maroon shirt, Sal, he's actually leaving us this week, so we're going to be down another one. So we're going to miss him because he does a fabulous job along with all of our employees at the senior center. Some of the things I'd like to talk about is our memberships. Over the last several years, we've been averaging about 290 to 300 members at the senior center. Over the last year, we've kind of did some subtle changes, some things since moving over there. And in that time, we've had some really good luck with getting people in there through the doors, and they liked what they've seen. So we've actually on track to be over 600 members. So we've actually doubled the memberships over just 1 year with just some minor changes of what we have. So we're very happy with that. In regards to residents versus non-residents, we just ran some numbers, and we're currently averaging about 80% residents and 20% non-residents at the center. A congregate meal program is one of our major things that we do through the area agency. Basically, we offer catered meals to participants. They do not have to be members at the facility, but they can still come in and get themselves a meal. It's partially paid for through the area agency through a grant that we have, and then the city pays for the remainder. Some of our special interest classes we can talk a little bit about. That was another area that we added a few more classes. We pretty much try to see what the areas that they're interested in. We do anywhere from line dancing to one-stroke painting. We do arts and crafts, things of that nature. So those are some of the things, and not to be confused with some of our social groups. Our special interest classes when we actually hire an instructor to come in to teach a class as opposed to more of a social gathering or things like that. Our social activities, we offer on any given hour, any given day, we have social activities going throughout the entire place. We have knitting groups, we have sewing groups, we have mahjong, which I still have no idea what that means. And they make fun of me because of that, because I have tried and I'm not real sure what it is. They do anything, you know, pinochle and string me along and things like that, but they have a good time. It's mostly run by our volunteers, and they take charge of the groups and they take it from there. Our health and wellness. We offer a lot of lunch and learns. As a part of our meal program, we bring in speakers that talk on various health-related issues. We do free blood pressure checks from some of our volunteers. So we try to incorporate some health-related things into the center as well. Bingo. Can't mention the senior center without bingo. If any of you have ever gone down Hollyhock Street on Thursday, you're going to have a heck of a time finding a parking spot because we pull them in for the bingo. We average between 80 to 110, depending on the season and what we do for bingo. So that is definitely one of our big ones. And then not only that, they stay around for the rest of the day for the lunches and the various activities like that. If it was up to them, they'd probably do it every day. Our fitness and gym. This is an area that I have a background in fitness. So when I went over to the senior center, it was I wanted to expand the fitness area, so we moved a wall and doubled the size. And it was a positive impact. They loved it. You would have thought I'd build a second floor on the facility. Just given a little bit of space and offering a little more room to do some classes, we introduced Silver Sneakers, which is a program through Healthways that actually pays for their membership into the facility if they're a member and they qualify through their insurance. And then in turn, they scan their cards every week for classes or the gym, and the city actually receives money back from Healthways as an intern. So it's a very win-win situation on both ends. Aging the facility. One of the tricky parts is the facility itself, since it has been added on to and things like that. There's not a lot of large space area, so we do a lot of moving of walls, moving of furnitures, things like that. We try our best, and our staff does a great job with setting up, tearing down about every 2 hours in there. But it is a challenge with the facility. We try to do the best, but we're pretty happy with the things that have gone on. And that's pretty much the over of the senior center. I thank you very much.
I do want to thank you all. You all have been there in the last few weeks, months, and appreciate you coming out and seeing the changes that slowly have to happen when you deal with seniors. You move something, you move a pencil on one table, they'll let you know that it's been moved. So it's sort of been, we sort of have to craft and be crafty a little bit and ease it in. It's just not something you can do right away, but we do want to thank you for that, for your participating with us. Next up is another division we have here, our Neighborhood and Family Services that is led by Christina Ramirez. I got to tell you, this is boots on the ground work, what they do. Our staff is somewhat a little bit different than other communities. We do the contracts itself, the negotiations. We do all that when it deals with the CDBG, home funds, with the monitoring, the reporting, federal regs, you name it. This department does that. This division does that. With that, Christina.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. Many of you know that I've been with the division for over 13 years now, and not only do I have a passion for what we do, being a native not only to Arizona but the area, it's not only passion, it's personal. And so for me, it is extremely important that everything that we do at a high quality, that we maintain effectiveness, and that it's actually community grown. That's the bigger part for us. I've taken a lot of your time in the recent weeks here talking about the NSP program, a program that started in 2008, which has funding we're still using to this day to help home ownership. The CDBG program, which is basically, again, homegrown to do the parks, the roads, the infrastructure, all of those needs that the community has and ages and needs to be reinvested in. The home program is something that we get through a consortium, and we received a little over $100,000 a year, but we were lucky enough through our continued engagement and working with our partners that we actually tripled it this year. So we received almost $400,000 this year out of a lot of negotiating and finagling, for lack of a better word. And so it's all to benefit of our community. Community engagement and reinvestment is really at the crux of everything that we do. We need that community feedback in order to assure that not only are we providing for those highest needs in the community, but we're also helping those individuals in highest need. And in order to continue to do that, you have to keep the community engaged and involved in all the processes to make these programs happen. We have a wonderful opportunity to work with partners also when we do community cleanups. We've done it in response to the foreclosures that came to the community and needed front yard cleanups. We've done it in washes and painting. We've done it in conjunction with the fire department, with the police department, in order for continued public safety. And so, again, we manage and maneuver the program so it continues to be viable. The Block Party Trailer, can't say enough about all of those programs. Over 50 parties a year, 15,000 individuals at each of these parties. That opportunity to see people one-on-one, have that conversation, talk to them about current issues. You know, I know that there's a lot of marketing that is done in the community, a lot of flyers that are put out, but I can't think of actually per person the biggest bang for your buck than the Block Party Trailer, because over a hot dog, so many issues are discussed and so many issues are addressed. And so I think, working with the schools, working with the nonprofits, working with the different communities and HOAs, this really is just a really highly leveraged program for what we get out of it. Lastly, Summer Youth Employment Program. We're on the verge of starting a new program here this year. It's a program that I think has grown and has become so rich in what we're able to do, not only for individuals trying to seek their first experience in the working world, getting life skill training, but also for those of us who take on some of these interns where we get to the better of ourselves, if you will. We get to the best of ourselves, where we become those mentors and we remember why we do what we do. One thing that's really interesting about SYAP specifically is we get a lot of feedback from the community. Everybody's looking for a job for their teenager. It's a hard time to find a job for a person that doesn't have a whole lot of experience. But in going through this last batch of applications, I was noticing not only are we going for this single head of households, we're also going for people that are still on unemployment, people that are disabled and have families that need to help in manage the household. So many children have come through us through the CPS pipeline also, individuals that are in group homes. So I think that we're really getting to the basis of who needs this training, who needs the hand up, and the opportunity to expand within their own talents. So that's a program that we continue to be very proud of.
Thank you, Christina. And a new division that we're still in the works and working on is with Ruby and Janine is our grants and community relations. We're condensing some programs and services, and with that, I'm going to hand that over to Janine.
Ruby Satya is well known in the city of Surprise. She's actually known as the neighborhood advocate. And as Mike said earlier, there's not a person that doesn't know her. I tend to think it's her New York charm, and that's not being biased. But she is sometimes the first person that people meet when they come to our city. She hosts several academies, the Citizens Academy, the Small Business Academy, HOA summits, and so on and so forth. And going into the future, one of the things that we want to do is continually look at the classes that she's providing. We want to refine them and make sure that they're always going to be relevant and they're always going to be of high caliber and quality, as Christina also alluded to. She has reached more than thousands and thousands of residents, and they keep coming back and they look to her as that voice, that advocate, and we want to keep that going. Which brings me to grants. Around about 6 months ago, I rolled out kind of where we were at with grants, and I focused on transparency and some future trainings. I regret that those trainings haven't happened, but over the last 3 months, we're kind of refining that. And after talking with several residents and council members and staff, we might be changing that a little bit to host some specific grant trainings for maybe schools or veterans or even nonprofits so that we can start to do more capacity building. We also continue to do research grants for our internal staff as well as external organizations. We monitor and we write, and we're going to continue to do that as best we can. We plan on leveraging partnership grants, and one of the things that we've done is we've started to look at really big pictures because there's so much going on right now within the city. And one of the things that we did was a grant mapping concept project. And I want to share with you what that kind of looks like. This is when you've got a lot of different projects going on at the same time, and we took a look at the Senior Center campus, and we came up with a couple of renderings to help us focus our grant activities. Now, as you all know, the Community Development Department is doing the overlay district. Christina is doing the consolidated plan. CRS always tells us about particular programs and sports activities that can go in the area and events. They've hosted the Fiesta and those sorts of things. And then we have lots of nonprofits, and they often come to me and say, how can I get some money? I need a baseball field, or I need this, or I need that, and what can we do to partner with the city? And in most instances, many of you council members, I ask you to write a letter of support, particularly the mayor, several times, so that we can help these nonprofits be more competitive in their grants. And so when we put this map together, that's what we were thinking. What are the things that are needed, and how can we start to focus our grants and give a visual look at it? So just for a minute, if you could all visualize with me, can you just imagine what a Arizona State Tourism Grant could do for this area? Maybe it might just improve the current softball field and add some parking, or maybe it would end up being a soccer field or a football field or a running track or walking space. And then can you just imagine if Roy Villanueva's dream for a basketball court in the OTS actually came true? What if that became a Sons grant or a tribal grant and we could make that happen in this area? And how about envisioning our current space right there at the Senior Center? What if we could preserve the small library? What if we could start to concentrate on the space for our seniors and maybe even an intergenerational space for youth? How would that look, and what impact would that have on this area? And then let's visualize if we stacked a couple of grants together and we ended up finding funding to help build the Boys and Girls Club, or even CPLC, where we could have them work with us in making sure that we have the right agencies for the neighborhood. And my personal favorite, how about if I showed these renderings to MAG and I talked about how we could have trees in the area to line the streets with CMAQ funding, so congestion mitigation, air quality funding, to help reduce pollution and make it more walkable. So there's a lot of what ifs, and this is just the visioning. The new department is not just for the OTS, it's for the entire city. The OTS just happens to be a hot topic right now.
So, how can you help? Well, you already are in some sense. I mean, we've already got the Senior Center Supervisor position in this current budget, awaiting that. Operations and maintenance really it's in a key for our community center, our senior center in particular in the kitchen area. Support for, as Janine announced, a robust grant program, because that's what it would be. And continued funding, obviously, like we all would ask, but more importantly, your leadership. In closing, we're on the move. The city of Surprise we're thriving. It was exciting to see last weekend. There is a heart, there is a soul, and we need you to continue that with us. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. And thank you to all your staff for the last couple of months. I think we've all gotten to know all of you a lot better, and really been seeing what you've been doing and how you've really been hitting the road. And we've seen a lot of you at the block parties and interacting with the community, and certainly at the open house at the community center. So I want to thank you for all the things that you all have done, because it's really been fun watching this group come together and really gel as a team. So questions, members, questions or comments? Councilwoman Villanueva, I see you reaching for the button.
I think it's a great presentation, and I love this. I think this is really great. I do want to, and this is my personal feeling, Gaines Park is the heart of Surprise. And that's all I'm going to say. I would say be careful with Gaines Park because it's where we all grew up. That's where many families have grown. And I don't know if that wants to be changed. It's just my feeling, and I think it's the feeling of a lot of the residents.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Winters.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. This question is for Joe, Mr. Joe Gladio. I didn't recognize him tonight, all dressed up. You had mentioned those volunteer employees. I believe the volunteer employees. You gave them a number. I don't. What,
The Title V employees or the part-time?
Yeah. What does that mean?
Title V employees is a way that it was actually a thriving program here in the city where we would bring in. It's a job skills training program. It's at no cost to the city through the National Council on Aging. And in about 2011, I believe we had actually 9 staff that worked at the senior center. We are down to a cell leave, and we'll be down to 2. So it's a great way of bringing in a job skills training, but also helping us out. It's a win-win situation.
So these folks get some training and something they want to pursue in their living?
It's basically working their way back into the workforce for whatever reason, whether it may be a disability or personal reasons or things like that.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Councilmember Tandy.
Thanks. Just kind of curious, we've got the senior center, it sounds like it's thriving in the OTS. Not for next year or maybe even the year after that, but maybe 5 years from now, do we think we would need an additional senior center somewhere in Surprise as we continue to grow?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Tandy, I think that's what we're looking for as far as the dialogue that we have with you. That's something we haven't addressed in our planning, but it's something we'll take back and we'll take a look at that. Very good question. Thank you.
Okay. And I kind of wanted to find out a little bit more, the council member Villanueva's thoughts a little bit, but the grants you presented, those are just options for the OTS, or are those grants that are available? And do you have like dollar magnitudes? And also maybe a little bit of background. Is this staff or is it the OTS stakeholders that is putting this information together? Just a little bit more background would help.
Thank you for the question. So the map is a tool that we use as grants writers when we have a lot of things going on, and we just put everything together and we look at input. And as I mentioned, we got some input from the consolidated plan, that would be from the residents. We got some input from community development. We've heard from council members the buzz about the Boys and Girls, CPLC. We just took all of that stuff and said, what would that look like in this area? And then what I did is I overlaid it with some potential grants. These grants could be used for those particular projects. They could be used for other projects as well. But it's just a way to kind of get yourself to think about, okay, what does it look like, because there's so much going on, and how do we help, how do we sell that? So a lot of times I have to defend a grant, and if I just show one thing, I'm like, that's just one thing. But if I can show a conglomerate of possibilities, then people can start to visualize a big picture and really start to say, oh, that makes sense, that flows. That's, if you have people here, then you have people here, and then you can see the vitality of an area.
Okay, so it's kind of possibility thinking. What is possible? There might be money out there, but we'll still take into account, like the council member mentioned, we'll take into account the community's desires as well.
It's just a concept, and like with every grant, that has to come before you before we move forward. But it's just a concept so that when we get to those points, we can show people a visual.
Okay. We had a lot of interesting ideas, and again, that's why I would like to know more about what the stakeholders want and what the council member would like for that area as well before we move ahead.
Just to that point, and actually we did, the OTS stakeholders group did actually see the grants map rolled out a week ago, I believe it was. And it was just, it was fun just to kind of see how that would all look if we were able to leverage some of those grants. And I want to point out too that when we talk about a robust grants program, there are specific parts of our city that are eligible for grants that other parts of our city are not. And so it's particularly important that our grant staff has a way of illustrating what could be in a robust grants program. So I appreciate the fact that you were able to put it down on a map, and rolling it out at the OTS stakeholders group was really just a really great experience, and I think we got a lot of positive feedback there. But again, the feedback that is being gathered through not only the OTS stakeholders group, but also through the overlay district meetings that are going on in Rachel's district, I think have really brought forward a lot more information that can inform the kind of the priority of these grants, the priority order of these grants too. So it's just great work that your department is doing, Mike, and I just think this is really exciting. So thank you for bringing forward a really great presentation this evening. Mr. Wigenroth.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of council, if I could just make a final comment after Mike's presentation. Mike, if you could back up to the photo of your neighborhood and family services team. I want to compliment your entire organization, Mike, because when you take a look, I think all of us have had photo ops. And in some cases, I'll tell you, at least for me, I'll have a plastic smile on, and I'll just be doing my best to keep my eyes open. But I need to tell you what I see in this photo, and I think you'd see it in the other photos of the people that are here and the people that are back taking care of business back at your shop. What I see is a team. I see over 50 years of professional experience there. I see a smile that's welcoming. I see a smile that we're here for you. I see humility, and I also see love. And I really think if I just take this photo, all the words, all the things that we can do technically and with grants, but it's these people, it's the people and the whole team that are going to make a great difference for our community. And Mike, thank you very much for assembling this team.
Thank you, Michael. All right, we plan to see a lot more of you, I know. So thank you very much, all of you. Next item.
Presentation and discussion regarding possible text amendments to the Surprise Municipal Code, Chapter 113, Signs.
Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. The next item is a discussion item. We wanted to have a discussion with you regarding the Chapter 113, which is the sign ordinance. And what we are really seeking, we want to be able to look at the sign ordinance, have it catch up with the SUDC update, and have all of that come together with the general plan update towards the end of the year. And so to get there, we have no proposed language at this time. What we're looking is to, we want to strike a balance between visibility and aesthetics. And what we're looking is that we would prepare draft language after conferring with you and put it out for public input, and then let that work through its course. I envision that we would probably potentially come back as maybe in a workshop session before we actually came to public hearing, but allow for some refinements and so forth. So what we wanted to do was just have a conversation. As I said, we needed to work on some housekeeping issues. There's certain provisions in the ordinance that don't make sense, and we want to be able to clean those up. For instance, there's a provision that talks about reader boards in non-residential uses in a residential zone, and how reader boards work. And it says that they're allowed for schools and public buildings. Well, does that mean that a church doesn't get a reader board if it happens to be in a residential area? Those sorts of things that we need to work on. And those are just housekeeping things that make the language work right. We also wanted to have a discussion with you. What are your opinions about billboards? Yes, no. Electronic messaging devices. Right now, they're not allowed, but other jurisdictions, they have allowed them. And so what are your feelings about that? Certain things, for instance, setbacks. We recently had what was a legal non-conforming sign in an apartment building. They wanted to replace the sign with a nice new sign, but they couldn't meet the setbacks, and so it would have probably driven that into a variance, and they worked it out where that was okay. But do we need to have a 20-foot setback for a sign on a multifamily zoning district? Is it really necessary? So those sorts of things, and if you have any feelings on that. There's a provision in the ordinance that talks about roofline accents. If you can picture the U-Haul right up the street here, you look at the top of that building, there's an orange ribbon around the top of that building. That same use in the city of Phoenix on I-17 near Deer Valley Road has an orange neon light around the ribbon. Right now, that's not allowed in the surprise zoning ordinance, but do you want that? Do you not want that? So that sort of thing. There was a discussion about possibly having, creating a kiosk program that's similar to the home builder kiosk that might allow businesses to advertise on these kiosks. Excuse me. So that was a discussion that we were having as well. We went to the Planning Commission. There were certain concerns voiced by some of the commissioners. Summarizing, get some clarification regarding where directory signs are allowed, digital versus messaging signs, making sure that there was a concern over proliferation of sandwich signs, and then there was other concerns over, again, about the reader boards and so forth, and then window signs. Currently, the ordinance says 25% of the window can be covered with a window sign. Is that too much, too little? So we can think about that. So my presentation today is very short. I just wanted to introduce that and then open it up for discussion and then take it from there.
Councilmember Williams.
Yeah, thanks. I guess there was a PowerPoint link that we were going to have a PowerPoint. I guess you threw a lot out there, and I would really like to slow down and maybe have all that in writing. And what direction are you looking for? Because I mean, we went from neon signs to 25% in the window, and we're kind of all over the place. So if you could give us something in writing, I think that would help to try to clarify and have I couldn't have a discussion on this right now because I don't know. There was nothing embedded in the workshop, and I thought we were getting a PowerPoint. So my apologies, but I would love to give direction and have a discussion, but I think we need a little more information in terms of what you're looking for. I think one of the comments that was embedded in the staff report was you're trying to find a balance, and I think having an idea or a broader sense or a more specific sense of where do we find that balance, I would say right away, just electric signs, I think that's good, but when it comes to what somebody can put in a window, I would think that's overbearing and let them do what they want with their business in terms of that. So I just would need more information in terms of what detail specifically would staff be looking for.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Vice Mayor Williams. feeling about this. It's kind of it's overwhelming ordinance. I'm not sure how to carve out what's what. I mean, you gave some examples. That's exactly what we need. But I want examples visually. I want you to take a picture of that ribbon that's on that U-Haul building on I-17. I like ribbons personally. I've used them in business, on freeways especially. They're very effective and they're not intrusive. They're just a nice classy ribbon right around the roof line. But I think we need examples, you know, visual examples. I agree with Vice Mayor Williams on the windows. I think that's, the fast food restaurant usually uses 100% of the windows for all their promotions, okay? And that's a competitive business, and people look to the windows. I mean, we've trained the consumer to do this, to look at the windows to see if there's a special that they want to take advantage of. So the message boards, I'm not sure about. I'd need examples. There's a sign on Arizona Charter Academy. What do you call that? A digital sign? A rolling digital sign, right? And it has multiple messages. Okay. I think we got to be careful how that's used, frankly. That's me. I'm just giving you some feedback, just me. But I think we need to talk about it as a group, you know. One of the things I'm concerned about is all the open house signs on the street for the real estate agents use. I don't know that we need 20 of them. You know, I mean, I've seen it as much as that. I mean, Todd's in the business. Maybe he can speak to that more eloquently. But I think we need to look at how many signs are out that are real estate open house signs for direction. It can be a little much. The sign walker ordinance, okay? Right, it says in the ordinance that it's okay in C3, BP, I1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the commercial on Bell, like at Bell and Litchfield, that's C2, correct? So it would not be allowable there. But C3 that's why I'm talking about examples. I want you to show a map where the sign walker would be. I think C3 would be on 134th in Bell, where the U-Haul is and where TNT Car Wash is, up that way. That's C3, correct?
Yes, generally, right.
Okay, so that gives us a point of reference. That's what I'm talking. I think that's what Vice Mayor Williams is talking about too. That information, we got a gap here in terms of information. So let's see, what else can I say? The temporary signs, the sandwich signs. I think we have really been helpful with the businesses, and I'm very business friendly. But I think it's gotten to the point where it's a little much, and it looks a little junky. I mean, if you drive by the Kohl's Center and you see 5 sandwich signs out there, it's a little much. I relate to trying to draw people into those businesses, you know, and I've talked to Eric about this, that we've got some shopping centers that we need to revisit their signage, because their signage is kind of not very effective, in my opinion, okay? And we've got some hidden businesses back that need some kind of help. I'm not sure what it is, but the sandwich sign out on the sidewalk is a little much after a while. And we did that because we wanted to help the businesses during the tough times with the downturn. Right. But I think we're starting to come out of that, and I think we need to work ways to replace the sandwich sign with some kind of more enhanced sign in the shopping center. And I'm not sure how we need to work on that. We mentioned it to Eric, and I think it needs some brainstorming. You know, and we've got also that area I talked about on 134th, okay? Those people employ a lot of people back there, but but typically you don't know what's back there. And I'm going to use Tintus Granite right now. They employ about 40 people. And there's a lot of, you just survey Surprise residents, a lot of them don't know what's back there. But they're good paying jobs. We want to make sure they succeed. He wants some help out on Bell Road to let people know that he's back there. And I think we need to look at that, you know. And I think we're going to start getting more action with Cobalt coming. I think there's going to be some more interest in land around there. So I think we need to take a look at what can we do to help businesses that are in the back there, in the industrial area. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. I have some other things, but I'm going to shut up right now. I think that's enough feedback from me. You can
Just
hear from
real quick
everybody
to
else.
Skip's point about the 134th area, I think we're going to have some real opportunities to, when we reconfigure that area with the Belgrande interchange, there's an opportunity to me for that new point of entry into that whole park to do some new signage that will really help those businesses that are back there. But that's an opportunity for us to kind of set the tone for how it can be redone in other business parks as well, and making certain that people are not left out. Because I agree with him, the signage, most of the current signage is really ineffective, and that's perhaps where the outgrowth of some of those sandwich signs came from. But I don't find them any more effective. In fact, I find them more detrimental. Particularly when you have a sandwich sign right next to a really nice sign. It takes your eye away from the really nice sign and you're seeing a sandwich sign. So it's just gotten a little out of control. But anyway, I just wanted to get to that point about an opportunity to set the stage with signage with that whole new entry and refocus area after the reconfiguration of 134th. Councilmember Tandy.
Thanks. I too agree that the visual would be very helpful, and maybe a comparison of one way it could look versus another way it could look. And then also it would be nice to see why a business would, what kind of comments they would have for wanting it this way versus that way, and vice versa. You know, they might like, one business might like it this way, and another might like it that way. If we can list why they would like those options, and then also maybe from a resident perspective of, you know, quality of the community, why people typically would like this or not. And I don't know if you need to do a survey or anything like that, but I'm sure there's probably information out there what other communities have found for each type of sign. So I do think we have an opportunity to upgrade our signage if businesses are so willing to do that, and we can allow them to do that. I realize there's some expense to that, but I also would like to, I think we relaxed our sign requirements maybe for a while during the economy when it was down. But I feel like we're starting to thrive a bit now, and I think we might even thrive even better if we have maybe that higher quality. Maybe it's time to not relax it anymore. I do like directional signs for builders, maybe all on one kiosk or something like that. So it's not kind of junky, just littered all over. It's more formalized, and it looks like, you know, we've got great working relationships with our developers, which I hope we do have. But it also shows that have a high quality standard as well, and it looks nice. Mentioning the real estate signs, I actually called it in yesterday.
Really?
To code enforcement. Sorry to my other agent that I called it in on, but you know, when I'm trying to make it look nice for my district, within a half mile, having 37 signs is kind of excessive for one open house, really? Including, there were 20 at one intersection alone. So for all for the same open house. So any realtors that are eager to get those homes sold, I applaud that, but at the same time, I hope you can keep it a quality affair as well. Thanks.
Councilmember Biondo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the earlier comments, but in addition to that, this gives us an opportune time, I think, to rethink after that period of relaxing that sign ordinance for a bit. Now we can give it that overall perspective and think in terms of, for example, exceptions. I understand there are exceptions for digital signs. Do we want to continue making exceptions or not? And in what instances do we want to make those exceptions? And also, obviously, gradations of digital signs. One can have a digital sign of one parameter and another, and that can make a huge difference in the overall appearance of the city. city. Just for the record, I don't like billboards. I'm not sure I'd want to see huge billboards in Surprise. And as far as just random signs along the way, for the first time today, I saw some open house small signs in the median, not just in the right-of-way, but in the median of the street strip. And that just didn't make much sense to me either. So I don't know that we've ever had a regulation specifically about the median, but this gives us an opportunity to think about that also.
Councilmember Winters.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to these sandwich boards, what does the staff think about that? What is the feeling of the staff about these sandwich advertising boards? I know the council about 4 years ago, before my time, made an exception, let these sandwich boards go up because of the recession. Things were tough. I'm not in any way, means, or shape, or form against any small business, whatever can help them. But the couple of comments I heard tonight was that it's getting a bit much out on the sidewalks, and actually blocking the right of way on some sidewalks I've seen. Maybe it might be a better way for our business to advertise besides sandwich signs. I agree with Councilman Biendo. I would not like to see any billboards in the city of Surprise. I think they're large and ugly. As far as 134th Street is concerned, I'd like to see a big monument sign up there on 134th and Bell saying what exactly is down 134th Street. Let the people know what is down there, because there are some good businesses down there. And unfortunately, they're not in a very good location through no fault of their own. And I think something like that would be nice to do in some big shopping centers. They say what's in that shopping center. So, I mean, those are just some ideas. Thank you.
Councilwoman Villanueva.
I was just going to mention the big bell boards, 30, 40 feet, that I didn't like them, but they already mentioned that. So, okay, thank you.
I'm sensing a theme that billboards are not terribly popular with this council, and I would suggest that that is consistent with a discussion I think we had about 4 years ago. I remember talking about that as we were concerned with the coming 303, that it could generate a lot of interest in billboards. And we've seen other communities to the east, particularly along the 101, particularly Glendale and Peoria, who've really struggled with billboards and the way they wanted their community to look and be represented, when, particularly when billboards are right on the border going from one city to the next. I'm pleased to see that the city of Peoria seems to take the same approach towards billboards, or has the same attitude on billboards as we do, because with the new 303, that connects a whole different set of suburban communities that would like to take a different approach to signage along our now new freeway. And it certainly is a wonderful new opportunity for businesses to get their message out, but oftentimes those messages can obliterate the absolutely beautiful views that brought us to Arizona and to the White Tank Mountains and to the West Valley. And that was, I remember, a concern that many of the residents on the west side were raising when the 303 was just kind of a twinkle in our eye and nothing in particular. One resident I know was very concerned about dark skies, and that issue of dark skies has been brought up too, about a concern about the light that comes off of signage, digital signs, large parking lots, and the like. So I think those are all things that need to be taken into consideration, and I think we're at a great point now to kind of restart our sign ordinance to mirror where we're at in the growth of a brand new city, and that it should fit and not just be leftover. So I think the goal is to not make it look or be satisfied with leftovers, but be concerned about making sure that we're really being thoughtful. So I agree with the rest of the council that having some pictorial examples, that's always helps us make a better decision. having that data before us is going to help us make a better decision, so I really would appreciate that in the future. Councilmember Tandy.
Just, that reminded me of one follow-up. In looking at lighting of signs, I actually like the dark sky initiatives, and I also think we can take advantage of the new technology, the LED lighting and things like that, maybe encourage that. I'll keep an open mind on the neon, but I'd like to see it and see the pros and cons, but I really like what the capabilities of the new LED lighting and the new technology, and it saves energy too. So I think it's worth taking a look at that.
You had the feedback that you were looking for?
Absolutely. This has been very helpful. I really appreciate it. And we'll put that together and come back to you in a workshop and run with it.
Super.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Last item.
Presentation and discussion of updates to the city's land use plan and additional general plan elements, and proposed changes to the city's street and roadway designations and outlining corresponding speed limits.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm really excited to be here. I also wanted to kind of recognize that we have Dana Oceana here from Traffic Engineering, and also Lieutenant Harold Brady and Stephen Chang, who are also here. And the reason why I want to kind of recognize them is this was really a team effort, besides working with community development in general, as well as with Public Works. What we have here is actually 3 to 4 different initiatives that were started by 3 to 4 different divisions and staff groupings in the city of Surprise, that after taking a look and really getting down into it, we realized they're all attacking the exact same problem, just from different angles, and we really needed to combine them into one motion. And so that motion won't happen today. What we're going to do is just kind of walk through it, kind of describe what's happening, and then hopefully here on May 5th, we'll be able to go ahead and move forward with some action items. And so I'm trying to kind of get direction from council today, as well as Dana and Harold. And we'd like to kind of see some head nods and kind of some verbal direction as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing we'd like to kind of discuss here is a Surprise Transportation Plan. Inside the Surprise Transportation Plan, there are things that need to be included. One is the speed limit map. One is a street network map. Another is a truck route map, and then a pedestrian or multimodal map. Now, currently in the form that we have it, some of this is located in code and just dictated, and so you have to read it and try to visualize in your head. Where is that? Some of it isn't included at all, and we default to state statute or federal statute. And then you have to try to visualize, how does that apply to the city of Surprise? It's kind of difficult. And so the first thing we're going to start with is the speed limit map. There's no official citywide speed limit designation that's been made. Over the time, we've done speed limit through planning, the platting and planning process, engineering or corridor studies, which could be like the Bell Corridor Access Management Plan or the Grand Avenue Plan that we did back in the day. And in some instances, we just don't have anything set. It just kind of defaults to being just nothing. And so that's really difficult. We have great officers who are out there trying to help make the area safe. However, when there's nothing there to default back, it's hard for them to kind of ticket. It's kind of hard for them to enforce a law that is not existing. And so that's a problem. So underneath the new map, we want to create a proposed 5-tier system of speed limits. The speed limits are based on roadway classifications and engineering standards studies that have occurred. And so we've gone back and we've taken a look as staff from engineering, from the police enforcement, from just community development and public works. And we wanted to make sure what's existing and what is already dictated. We also took a look at future roadways, what's planned. And then we're also trying to take a look at how can we create something that the council can still have an opportunity to change. And so we're going to kind of go over that. Here's the proposed speed limit map. As you can kind of see, blue is 50 miles an hour, red is 45. Purple would be the 35 miles an hour, and then the green would be 20 miles an hour. And then everything that's gray would be considered a local roadway, and that would automatically fall back to the default designation of 25 miles an hour. And so that's what you see here. As you can kind of see, it's set for the whole city. And we are also including some roadways that are out in the county as well. But what we're really trying to set here are the things that are within our city boundary. One interesting thing here is it does not include US 60, nor does it include State Route 303, because those are ADOT facilities and those are set by ADOT. So the speed limit, as far as enforcement, speed limits are not required by federal law. They are given the power through federal law. The state, I believe it's Arizona State Statute 28701 actually sets it for Arizona, and it gives the 5-tier speed limit that we're adopting. They do recommend that we set for current roadways when they're being built that they are being designed to the 85th percentile of what we propose the speed limit to be built, or if we're going to change a road designation or a speed limit on that road, that we try to set it to the 85th percentile. So the reason why they do the 85th percentile is they say about 85% of individuals who are driving will drive a safe speed. That's across the nation. And so whatever that 85% of our population is driving that roadway, that's what they feel that road is designed for, and they think it's safe, and that's where you should set the speed limit. The other thing that we can kind of do is we can kind of do a fact-based or uniform application by going through and doing corridor studies or just trying to do a general thing. And then the last one is to, when we're actually going to build a new road, to kind of take a look at what that design would be based off of what we have planned that road to be. One of the big thing here is it's going back to the whole concept of minimum design speed. So what is it designed to run at the bare minimum versus functional classification. And so sometimes we build a road and we think it was built for a certain speed, but then when people drive it, it really isn't safe. And so they're driving either faster or slower, and then that's where that design speed comes into play. So for functional classification, it's the process by which streets and highways are grouped into classes. In the city of Surprise, we have arterials, and we have major and minor arterials. We also have collectors, and then we have principal arterials, and then we have the local roadways. And that's kind of how we've kind of broken out our speed limit. It's based off those 5 classifications. One thing that's really interesting is that when you take a look at the proposed street network map, I will not show a collector on there. It just gets really gummed up, but the collector roadways are the runs of a ladder. Everything else is what kind of supports that system. And so there is one collector that I will show here in a little bit. Also on that street network map, what we're trying to do is we're going to show you proposed new truck routes. Currently right now we have Dysart set as a truck route, and we have Bell Road set as a truck route, as well as US 60, to be able to help facilitate some of the truck traffic within the city of Surprise. We're proposing an additional little legs here, which I'll also highlight. And the last thing I'd like to indicate there is we did adopt a street network map with the general plan in 2013. However, that map hadn't been updated since 2010. And so what we're trying to do now is do an amendment that will be brought back through the general plan process, which was also done during the land use. So it'll correlate with the new land uses that we're taking a look at in the general plan amendment, and then kind of help clean up that portion of the general plan. So here's the new map that we're proposing. As you can kind of see, everything that kind of has a yellow highlight band on there is considered to be a new truck route. You do have the 2 types of blues. The heavy blue is set as a principal arterial. The light sky blue is the minor arterials. And then the greens are parkways, and then the reds would be considered highways. As you can kind of see here, this has a purple band on it, and this is something that we're trying to bring back to council for consideration. It is Bullard Avenue. Bullard Avenue happens to be a unique roadway. Bullard Avenue is, in the general plan, was posted as a recommended electric vehicle roadway. Currently underneath the state, any vehicle that's an electric vehicle, hence golf carts or anything that just runs on a pure battery besides that can't go over 50 miles an hour, can only go on roadways that are designated to be 35 miles or less. We have a lot of really good systems that go east-west, but we really don't have a good north-south trunk. Bullard Avenue, however, is one that's also been identified as a new multimodal pedestrian heavy-centric roadway. It currently has 2 to 3 different speed limit changes within that corridor. It has a lot of schools that were on that corridor. And then we started taking a look at some of the concerns that were brought out about it. When we took a look at Bullard, it's a 5-mile stretch. It currently is no longer going to get longer or bigger. It's bound to the north by Bell, and it's bound by the south by Peoria roadway. We know it will not extend any further south based off of plans that Glendale has set in their system. So it would not go any further south. It connects over to our baseball facility, our city center. It also connects into, I believe, 4 different elementary schools. And so what we are proposing to do is to try to change this designation and make a new designation as an electric vehicle corridor or a collector roadway with a new designation as electric vehicle. We're proposing to go ahead and eliminate one striping lane for that roadway and restriping that section for electric vehicle use only. And that vehicle lane is going to become a new HOV lane for electric vehicles, but it can also be used for things like bicyclists and having that one dedicated lane. We're also proposing to go ahead and to try to do some bulb outs and some other mitigation factors to help make it safer for these elementary school kids to walk back and forth and to create a multi-use pedestrian facility. Like I discussed the last time I presented, if we make it safe for a 6-year-old to get to school, it'll be safe for a 60-year-old to use this facility as well. The nice thing about this corridor is it really does connect into a lot of different areas, and it will help kind of bring some of our northern populations that can't commute down south using alternate vehicles, that they can go ahead now and travel the full length of the city.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Before we move forward after this slide, Vice Mayor Williams had a comment that he wanted, or question that he wanted to ask.
I mean, I could wait to. It's relevant to what you're talking about.
That's fine.
So, my only question when I looked at the initial map that you had up in terms of it's kind of the minor arterials, major arterials. Keep going back. The first one you had up there, yeah. So, and you explained it before, it's based on a lot of traffic studies that you've done and kind of the engineering of the roadway. But I'm just curious in terms of looking at the map and seeing some of the concerns that are always concerns. So, for example, Bullard, Ashton Ranch, and that space on Bullard between Greenway and Waddell, kids coming over from Royal Ranch, going to school at Ashton and crossing that roadway over there. And then in Sierra Montana, over there, that Sierra Montana Parkway, that whole loop is 35 around the elementary school. And obviously during school, you have the school zone and the speeding, but just curious as to why that area is designed like that. And I mean, I traveled the roadways frequently in Surprise Farms, but there's, it's 5 miles an hour slower there versus in the other community over there. And I couldn't really understand that clearly. Why differentiate?
There's our roadways have been built over time, and during the boom, unfortunately, some of those roadways were really beefed up, and they were given a lot of right-of-way, and they were designed for flow. And so when they were designed for flow, they were designed to move as many vehicles as possible through it. Unfortunately, at that time as well, as we had a lot of schools coming in, and there was a partial disconnect there on how the school faced, where the school was located, and how it interacted with the the actual community itself, as well as with the roadway facility that was planned to help to bring the children back and forth, as well as the community interaction. And so that's kind of some of the background to that. When we're taking a look here as the speed limit map right now, is we're trying to take a look at what is the 85th percentile, or what has been set by policy. We do have an opportunity as council to go ahead and give direction that you would like to make, or like to have us take a look at certain sections.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at. Is take a look at Verde Vista, take a look at Sierra Montana Parkway, and those roads are no bigger than 175th. I think it's 175th or 177th going through Surprise Farms. 175th. And so just kind of taking a look at those issues, and then that crossing for kids that are going into Ashton Ranch, that's been an issue and it's an ongoing issue, and staff is continuing to, and I appreciate continuing work with residents on that issue. And then the other one, which is a major issue right now, which I know your department is addressing, is Saraville and Northwest Ranch Parkway, and that huge turn and that 90-degree turn there and that blind turn over there. And on the map, it's a small issue, but that roadway changes to 25 miles an hour. And just, are we kind of looking at that? And obviously that roadway is like you said, it's massive. It lends itself to higher speeds, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got to slow down. So those types of things, are we taking a closer look at that, or are we just going to kind of label that 35 and go from there?
Part of that is we can take a look at that, and we will. We'll go ahead and go back. That's the reason why we're here, to kind of get the head nods and kind of get the direction. But the other thing also then is trying to make sure that, one, is it going to be safe to kind of take it down to a lower speed? Two, can the full network handle that roadway coming down? Kind of like Bullard, if we take Bullard down, are there other supporting roadways that can help facilitate that? And two, what can we do to be able to help not only just bring the posted speed limit down, but do things to help make the driver's habits slow down? Because the worst thing that we can do is to take a roadway that feels like it should go 55 miles an hour and change it to 25 miles an hour, because then we have Lieutenant Harold who's going to be sitting out there trying to slow people down because they're speeding and excessively speeding. And so then we create an even more dangerous situation. And so we'll go ahead and take a look at that as staff.
Actually, if I could interject, we did have the speed trailer out and did a study, and the 85th percentile speeds came back at 35 miles an hour. So we did look into the speed issues.
So, but we can go ahead and take a look as well and continue on that discussion. If you do have roadways that or sections of those that you would like us to take a look at for these maps before we come back May 5th, please let us know. We can take a closer look at those individual sections and come back with answers onto why they're set the way they are.
Okay. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just as a reinforcement to Northwest Ranch Parkway and Saraville, the police department gave me some information that there's been 6 accidents on that road in the last 3 months. And what I would like to know is, what were they exactly? Were they left turns onto Greenway? Where were they, and what were the specifics? Because that's a lot of traffic accidents in that time period.
I'm trying to recall off the top of my head. 3 of them were at Greenway, and they were.
Oh, so you know the one.
Yeah, I've already got the reports, and we've been reviewing them. And 3 were inattention drivers, not paying attention. The street lights or headlights weren't turned on, so the other oncoming driver didn't see them. So there's things like that we can't really engineer.
Yeah, no, you can't engineer for that.
And then there was, I think, a medical reason where he fell asleep or lost control and crashed into the trees at the park.
Oh, okay. So now I'm just wondering, are they using Northwest Ranch as a cut-through to get to Sam's? And is that carrying people from the west side of 303 down Greenway and then cut through up to Bell?
We would have to try to do like a license plate survey or something to be able to check origin and destination, but the volumes were only 2,900 per day, were actually a lot lower than I had expected.
Oh, wow. So that, yeah, that's not much longer. Okay, then the other thing, why, can we go to the truck route? Okay, yeah, you just want to, okay, the truck route. So we're saying the truck route is Grand down to Dysart?
Basically, Grand Avenue through the whole city limits is designated as a truck route. Dysart through the whole city limits would be designated as a truck route. We do have a small portion down here that would come off of Dysart onto Cactus to Litchfield, come down from Litchfield to Peoria, and then have Peoria go back over to Dysart. And so that's to help facilitate that industrial section of our community.
I mean, you guys are the pros, so I'm just a guy in the street, but no pun intended. But I'm wondering why we even want them coming down Grand. Why would we want trucks coming down Grand? Why wouldn't we, with the 303, have that be the truck route? And if they have to get through the industrial complex, they can come over Peoria or whatever, because I'm anticipating the Belgrande interchange, okay? And as far as I know, 75% of the trucking companies use an app. I can't remember the name of it, but they go on this application and it shows them where to go, where the trucks go. Is that right, Martine? So you're telling them that this app will show them they should go down Grand, down Dysart. Because most of those trucks
basically that app would bring up the city communities, and that app, from what I understand, it takes a look at the designated truck routes. And currently right now in code, US 60 is a truck route that they valid could go, and they would go down.
Yeah, I understand that. And most of them are going down to 35th Avenue Industrial Complex.
Yes.
That's where they're headed. But there's a better way to go. And it's called 303 to 10 and back to 35th Avenue and up. It's faster, it's safer, it's the whole thing. I mean, I think the more we can do to move trucks off Grand Avenue, especially with the upcoming Belgrande, the better. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll take a look at that and evaluate that for sure.
So yeah, evaluate that. The other thing is, I think the Bullard Avenue thing is really cool, because if we make that electric vehicle, golf vehicle, I envision Bullard as being our rec center of gravity, so to speak. Okay, with the stadium there, the aquatic center, the library, just the whole thing there, and then in the future building other recreation facilities, that could be just the center of gravity. Bullard could be the main street of Surprise in the future, okay, rather than Bell and whatever. That the north-south main street of Surprise could be Bullard Avenue if we do it right. So I think this is a part of that.
One of the neat things when you consider Bullard Avenue is that if you look at bigger communities like Denver had took their 16th Street Mall. It used to be 16th Street Avenue, and they put no vehicles. They made a pedestrian walkway. They put the light EV bus, free busing, and they go up and down the corridor there. That's kind of like what we're envisioning for Bullard here. When we did the traffic counts on Bullard, there were less than 8,000 vehicles a day.
Right.
And so in all essence, it's not carrying that much of a load, which is great. It does help out other things such as our school-age children, since we have four elementary schools there. But it will give them an opportunity to be able to interact to our new downtown center.
Right.
It really does flank that opportunity, and if we do it right, it could be a poster child for a new type of roadway or corridor.
I agree.
It's something that we can kind of be proud of for here in the valley.
It's really, really good thinking, you guys.
It'll be the first for I believe in the nation, but I know for sure it'd be the first here in the valley.
Yeah, what a neat
Plus,
deal.
with the school districts are changing their bus routes and making the range from 1 mile to 1.5 miles, so they want to add new crosswalks at Bullard and Acoma and add crossing guards. So that would help if we can reduce the speed limit.
Yeah. And again, the only way this EV corridor or this electric corridor would work and function is if we could bring down the speed to 35 miles an hour and do things to make it safer in the sense of doing the bulb outs and restriping, because one, it's by state law, an electric vehicle cannot legally drive down a roadway unless it's set to 35 miles an hour. And for us, that would have to be a collector status road. And two, we don't want to encourage really big, wide lanes. You know, when you're trying to help slow down the speeds, you want to try to bring them in a little bit closer because individuals will naturally drive slower that way. And it makes it easier for pedestrians to cross.
Just real quick, while we're on the subject of Bullard, how is this going to affect the parking issue? Because that's another issue we talked about a couple years back, whether it should be pull-in parking or you know, horizontal, yeah, parallel parking.
I assume you're speaking about up here closer towards the hotel area. Actually, if we slow down the whole area and we make it more of a pedestrian multimodal use, electric vehicle use, that's something that we can take a look at and bring back. These are just concepts that we're throwing out. We don't have a design yet. Engineering and community development, we need to sit down and actually kind of discuss and hash out and bring back some concepts to you. We envision that at first we would try to do it with paint because paint is cheap, and then try to kind of get everybody to kind of get that feeling, put up some new signs and try to teach individuals how to ride it out. And then after we do that, then come back with some hardscape and some other things that would help make those parallel parkings or angle parking a little bit safer, help make those crossings a little bit safer for bicyclists and pedestrians and other things.
So, since we're looking at the whole system and we're looking at how we make sure that we get around, another thing that we have to look at, because we are definitely short of this in the city of Surprise, parking. And yes, we want to make ourselves more of a walkable community, but in some cases you almost have to drive there so you can dump your car, then you can start walking. That is a problem that we see everywhere around the city. We don't own a lot of property. We don't own that we can control it with parking facilities. And so it's something that I think that we need to take into consideration, because we are talking about moving vehicles, not just people, but we're trying to find the right balance and figure out how we make sure that we create enough parking for these destination facilities that we're talking about planning. It's not, this last weekend, our parking facility, the crushed parking facility over by the Aquatic Center was a swap meet. The same day we had Wham with a festival over at on Dysart, and they were using a blank field for parking to try to get to the facility. So I think having a parking map and a kind of start planning for those parking for destination facilities is going to have to be something that we build into the plan. Councilmember Tandy.
Thanks. I actually did see an example that I thought was kind of crazy when they were building it, but an example in the city of Indianapolis where they kind of did something like this. And I thought... You mean Bullard? Yeah, like Bullard. Yeah. But this was a major street, including the street I took into my commute every day to downtown. And it turned out fantastic. I never knew that it would have that kind of effect, and the business district there just really took off because of the changes. I think we might have that same kind of opportunity here in the downtown area. I personally like the idea for a variety of reasons. One is I like the ideas of trails and connectivity. We already have some bicycle races and running races that come down Bullard anyway. And there's actually, my concern is we actually have 5 schools, soon to be 5 schools this summer. We've got Ashton Ranch, Rancho Gabriel, and Marley Park, each with students that now will be walking across the street on Bullard, and the parents are concerned. You know, right now they do have buses, but right now because of the crunches on the school district budget, the board is having to look at 1.5 miles, and that puts the people on the east side of Bullard having to walk their kids. So, you know, the crosswalks will be an improvement. One thing I would like us to look at is also if we can do kind of a median island of some sort right at the crosswalks. I saw some interesting ones in a city I visited a week or so ago. It kind of felt like well, it's Las Vegas, Las Vegas University of Las Vegas. It actually had some kind of L-shaped crosswalk safe areas. So that was kind of interesting. It might be something for us to look at, because I do want to make sure our children are safe. You know, when I first moved in here, there was a crosswalk on Bullard near Choya. They took that out because there was a child that got hit. So this is just going to become more of an issue. And we also have 2 charter schools, Legacy Traditional and Rosefield, that also are right in that area. So I think that's important. It's not a lot of traffic. I don't think it'll pick up a lot of traffic. I personally think the 2 roads on the east and west can carry the load because those go through, whereas Bullard doesn't go through. So it'd be more of a logical place to go anyway. The truck routes also, it's interesting where they're going. To me, that kind of makes sense. But I also, rather than try to, after we get these in, can we write into it, you know, no truck brake? I know it's flat and level, but can we write in something where no truck brakes or engine brakes and things, usage in our city? Things like that.
I believe that's already in our city code.
Okay.
They're not allowed to use engine brakes or Jake brakes.
Jake brakes, right. And then I also would like to see at least we need to think through what is our temporary plan while we're doing Bell Grand construction of a truck route, and does that make sense for long term also? So I like those ideas. One last comment also. Since Bell Road will not be a 35, I think we also probably should show in that other map where it was showing some of the speed limits. The street right north of the 8-acre park is probably the place where Bullard will connect up with Parkview to make the full connection all the way to the other side of the city for those electric vehicles.
Paradise.
Yeah. So it'd be Bullard to Paradise to Parkview, and you could actually go all the way to Sun City Grand that way.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Councilmember Winters.
Thank you, Mayor. Nice presentation, Martin. Thanks for all the information. On this Bullard thing, what's it going to do to hotels here, 2 hotels? You think it'll be a positive effect on them?
I believe it would be a positive effect. Whenever you can get a hotel facility, individuals who visit hotels normally aren't driving, at least, you know, they're either flying and they're renting a vehicle. When they come to a destination, especially for maybe spring training games, they want an alternative way to be able to get around to the community, whether it be on bikes or walking. They want to be able to get to understand what the flavor of the destination they're going to. And so I think if we can do this right, we'll be able to create a really connected, happening place where individuals can come, stay, park. Maybe they drove to the hotel and they park in the back, and then they eat maybe down and they're able to walk to eat at some of our shops, or they go down to, you know, our rec center or the ballparks, or they're able to kind of have a leisurely stroll and kind of feel like, you know, it's safe. And so I think this is really a great opportunity. I think if we do it right, we're able at that point in time to kind of bring in some of the businesses and economic development that we're looking for.
Let's go back to Northwest Ranch Parkway if we can. I'm glad you're looking at that, because that road is dangerous. I personally don't know why the developer put a main arterial through his own community like that and divided that Northwest Ranch in half. And I think people are using that to go between Bell and Greenway and vice versa. And I've had a couple of problems about that road. First, it's too wide. And there's a curve there before you get to the crosswalk. And by the time you're on the crosswalk, doing 35 miles an hour, there's not enough time to stop for kids going. And it's by a little kid's tot lot, this curve. And they cross that street. I get phone calls from the constituents down there. And I hope you guys can do something about it. I don't know what you can do about it. I'm not the expert, you guys are. But to my way of thinking, that road, splitting that community in half, should have never been put in there. But I hope you guys can find a solution to the problem before somebody gets seriously hurt or even worse, killed there. crossing that street. Thank you.
Thank you. Really quick before I go down to the timelines, I wanted to do the last thing. We did mention there a pedestrian or multimodal map. I don't have one up quite yet, but I just wanted to point out some of the pedestrian grants that we're moving forward. Grand Avenue right now, we were awarded about 6 months ago a 15% design for Grand Avenue sidewalk gap to be able to bring in the sidewalks from the 303 all the way down to about Reams Road. We have moved forward with that through the MAG process, and we have a consultant on board right now who's taking a look at that and trying to bring that to a conceptual 15% design. The Bell Sidewalk project will have to go back out and get rebid, but we are having those funds and we are trying to move those forward before the Bell Grand project gets underway. And then the Safe Routes to School application process is starting up again, and we're planning to go ahead and make an application for all the schools located along Bullard Road, and also trying to kind of bring in our application with the Dysart School District and those principals. And so we won't do one for Dysart all across. We're going to go ahead and focus in on some of those schools that are along that Bullard corridor, because it gives us the greatest opportunity to be able to try to get funded. And so we are moving forward with that. What we anticipate right now for a timeline is that we're right now, today's April 21st, we're at the city work session. We anticipate trying to come back May 5th for the speed limit map and the classification. I'll also try to take a look at trying to kind of see some of those other answers and gather those up for you at that point in time. We anticipate to try to make those speed limit changes if they is approved sometime in the summer. So it takes an opportunity to be able to go and do re-signing to kind of help do some education that we're making some of those changes. And then some of the tasks that we anticipate happening here is we do need to make some changes to some code. So that way we do it in a resolution saying that in the future we will be based off these maps. And so if we need to make a change, we can make a change on the map, and we won't have to go through and do a code change every single time. And we can do it by resolution. We will be adopting maps through an exhibit denoting the changes as well. And then re-signing and setting new speed limits. And then for the actual street classification, we have to take that back as a general plan amendment. And so we'll be bringing that back in November through that process with the land use amendments being made through the general plan amendment. And so that was adopted officially in that, and we are making significant changes. And so we would bring that back through the amendment process.
Councilmember Villanueva.
I have a few questions. One was you mentioned about the truck route on Dysart Road. We have an elementary school and also a high school, and also some of those trucks come back, and instead of going straight on Dysart, they turn in front of my house on Greenway. Mm-hmm. And it's we also have another elementary school there, where kids cross all the time. That's a concern of mine. I wanted to ask you also about, I heard that there was going to be a sidewalk, I don't know, if from Melmirage Road to the river. Mm-hmm. Do you know where that's at? It's been in the process for quite a while, and it hasn't been done. And this
I would have to take a look into that.
Okay. And this probably doesn't have anything to do with you, but if you have someone that you can talk to, the road going from Melmirage to the 303, it's kind of like a freeway, and the speed is only 45 miles an hour. I hope the police doesn't hear me, but that's pretty slow for a freeway. It's not a freeway, but it looks like a freeway, and there's very few cars going through there.
Again, it goes back to the design speed versus the actual classification. It was classified one thing, but it was designed really wide, and those road lanes are wider than 12 feet, and hence it seems slow. And the majority of the individuals there are probably, the 85th percentile is probably closer to 60. That's a county road, so I'll go ahead and forward that comment over to our county representatives and our constituent staff members, and we can kind of see if they can go ahead and take a look at that.
To that point, I think it's really important that we be working collaboratively with our partners, both at the county and ADOT, because this is not going to be the last time that we have those kind of conflicts with design standard versus the way it's actually going to function. And I think Councilwoman Villanueva raises a very good point about that roadway in particular, because it is definitely gives you the impression that this is Speedway Central, and it's a conflict with what's going on in Bell Road.
It can actually be detrimental and dangerous in the sense that it feels like it go faster, so everybody's going faster, and then you have somebody who drives the actual speed limit, and if it's more than 15 miles difference there, it could be dangerous. And so I'll go ahead and provide that comment. One of the great things is I just probably got done with Maricopa County DOT transportation plan update. They're doing theirs right now, and that comment can be made live on their website, and they're taking comments. And so what I can go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and input that for you, and put it straight into their website that, about that speed and taking a look at it for that. But I encourage the council to go ahead and take a look at their website, because if there's any county road in our county pockets or any roadway that that you travel throughout any of Maricopa and you have a comment about it, they are currently taking comments for their transportation system plan, is what they call it.
One other thing that I wanted to mention while you're at it, or if you have, when you turn from the 303 into El Mirage Road, there's a little sign about that big, and at night you can't hardly see it. There's been so many people that just go and they're lost. They don't know where El Mirage Road's at. So that would be great if we could have a bigger sign there. Thank you.
Councilmember Winters.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to your sidewalk comments, Martin, you do realize there's no sidewalk on Grand Avenue going in front of the Golden Corral, correct?
Yes.
Is that going to be covered in this project?
I believe that is a 15%. Stephen, is that 15% on there? Yeah. We did include that in the application. And so they are designing that portion of the sidewalk up to 15%.
Okay. When you go down Grand on the sidewalk, it stops. And you have to go out to a different street to go any further.
And there is that little gap. We also included that little gap also to connect, because if you just go across the roadway, the sidewalk picks up again. And
right,
so, yep.
Exactly. When are we talking about this actually getting done? You any idea?
Well, that's the interesting
10 years,
thing.
15 years?
Hopefully not. ADOT and MAG, every year they do an engineering design grant process, and so what we anticipate doing is getting this through the 15% design and then going back and applying for additional assistance and bringing it up to 30, and at that point in time then making an application for actual transportation alternative funds to actually build the facility, and then using a city match to complement the federal dollars.
Okay.
And so we actually anticipate this moving through the process, and hopefully within the next 5 years actually being able to make an application to be able to bring
Actually,
that
where
to
the
fruition.
sidewalk stops and where it begins on the next street is not very far. It's really a short distance, just in front of Golden Corral there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tandy.
Thank you. Just real quick on the schedule. If we approve the new map in May, and you put the signs up in summer, I just kind of have one preference. If we do Bullard, since there's the 5 schools right there, hopefully we can coordinate with the charter schools and the public schools, so they're fully aware of it, and it can be done. I don't know what their preference would be, a week or 2, at least in advance of the new school year. And then also that we reach out and communicate to the schools and also to the HOAs on both sides of the street, because I think that'll catch the majority of the traffic, so it won't be a surprise when they wake up and turn one morning and might get a ticket.
Okay. Is that the last of the questions? Anyone else? Seeing none. Thank you very much. I do believe we have one member of the public that wishes to talk on this item, and that would be Christine Baker. Christine, good to see you again. If you would identify yourself for the record.
I think most of you know who I am by this time. I'm almost as famous as Ruby. Christine Baker, 16586 West Marconi Avenue in the beautiful community of Northwest Ranch. And I was so pleased to hear Northwest Ranch Parkway talked about by not just John and Roland, John having been the previous councilman, but Skip, you know Northwest Ranch now. You all know what the problems are. I think I feel better about this situation than I did 2 days ago, because you all have heard what we're saying, and that just makes my heart sing. I also, some other things that make my heart sing is Mike Gent. I think he's here somewhere. I called him on a Saturday night to leave him a message on his voicemail that I really wanted to talk to him. 15 minutes later, he called me, and it was like, what? No, he answered the phone, and he had an answer for me the next day. He has been out. I think he has put out the speed trailer already to measure the speed. And he'll be coming to our HOA meeting on May 21st and get my board and my property management company to listen to what's going on. And this is being driven mostly by the Johnsons and myself and the snippets that I'm getting off of Nextdoor. So anyways, I'm not going to go through the 90-degree angle. 25 to 30 come out, they speed up. There's the tot lot, we worry about our children. The children probably couldn't get across the street anyway, speedily enough because it's 7 lanes and it's really wide and just terrible. We have 4 crosswalks across Northwest Parkway. It's, like I said, 7 lanes wide. I worry about Greenway and Northwest Ranch with Prasada coming, and then the memory care facility that's going to be going in next to the Methodist Church up on the north side. So we need to keep our eyes out on about that. We've been fighting these issues for years, and we hit the recession, and there was no budget. So I was really happy to hear, I know that Janine is really great about grants, so I'm really hopeful that she might actually be able to find maybe some grants to help us, the community, because that is a very serious situation. And there's a lot of liability, I think, that's there. The other thing that we have a problem with, and I'm glad to see there is the public safety departments here, is the speed is terrible, as well as the fact that they speed past school buses who have their flashers and their stop signs out. And I'd like to see some increased patrolling around that. But other than that, kudos to my former and current councilman, and kudos to Mike Gent and all of you guys. You always listen, and that's so cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, we do have 2 others, I believe, that would like to speak on this issue. Would you please come forward and state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Gary Johnson. I live in Northwest Ranch Parkway. I'm not an engineer, and I don't talk the engineering geek speak, 85 percentile and all that, but there was one slide when we first came in, and I caught my eye. It was a family, and a family with 2 children on bicycles with helmets, and that's Northwest Ranch Parkway, and that's the image I'd like you to keep when we think about safety issues on Northwest Ranch Parkway. Northwest Ranch is a beautiful community. It's full of families. It is, however, divided, as mentioned by Councilmember Williams. It's divided by Northwest Ranch Parkway. In order for families to go visit other families on the opposite side of the parkway, you have to cross somewhere. If you want to enjoy the walking paths in Northwest Ranch, you have to use a crosswalk. We have a tot lot. It's right at the entrance, the north entrance to our community. It's the place where children go to play. It's the place where families go to play. My wife and I enjoy the community. We enjoy walking on the walking path. We enjoy taking our granddaughter to the park and playing at the tot lot. It was an incident back in 2011 where I first became aware of the tremendous danger that occurs in crossing that parkway. And I'll read to you what happened. With my granddaughter in my arms, I look both directions. I step out on the pavement, I cross the bike path, I cross the first lane of traffic. And at that instant, even though I check both ways, a car speeds around from the north, unexpectedly. At the same time, a car comes around the corner from the south, simultaneously. My wife is behind me, my granddaughter in my arms. I've got nowhere to go. I'm too far to retreat. It's too far to go forward. Both vehicles show no sign of recognizing that we're in the crosswalk. Ultimately, they both speed by. We make it to the side, and I'm just in shock. First, how can one place a child in such danger? Then I got angry. How can a community have a situation that is so lethal and so dangerous? Now, Council Member Williams was very helpful. The community listened. The engineering group added some stripes to the crosswalk. It helped. But the problem still continues. As mentioned by Council Member Hall, there's been 6 accidents recently. Were they speeding? Were they inattention? Were they texting? Who knows? But they're occurring. Our neighborhood is concerned about the traffic problem. In an HOA meeting, we had a representative from the police department come out, address public safety issues, and it was brought up about speeding. It was pointed out that Northwest Ranch Parkway is an attractive nuisance, bringing in drivers to see how fast they can make the curves in that community. So it's attracting reckless driving. It's been pointed out in meeting with an engineering members that Northwest Parkway is an engineering challenge safety-wise. It's got very short sight distances for drivers and very short sight distances for pedestrians. I'm very pleased to hear that there is the awareness that the problem exists. It sounds like there is a willingness to act on it, but I do fully realize that there has to be funding to do a proper fix to this street. So, in conclusion, I ask the council to take this seriously, provide the funding to correct this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else?
Do we have another speaker? No, Mayor, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much, one and all. And that ends the agenda for this evening. There is no executive session for the workshop, and so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.